Howdy, guys. Welcome back to the RedAss podcast. This is episode 21. We're legal to drink.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't believe we're at 21. It seems like it jumped quick.
Yeah, it's kind of a slow summer, but it's really starting to pick up now. This is your co-host, Rob White, Fighting Texas A class of 2014.
And this is Roy May, Fighting Texas A class 2015.
And before we really get into the podcast, I want to say a quick shout out to the Aggie soccer team. Congratulations. They just secured co-SEC regular season champs. Yep. So we got ourselves a nice little trophy for the case.
That 3 p.m.
Yeah.
game. I get it, but it sucks.
I really wanted to go.
Yeah, we got to work.
Yeah, exactly. I was working. Yeah, I bet we just caught the end of it. Watched it on my phone right before we got started.
Yeah, just Coach G just piling up trophies. That program is phenomenal.
Well, you just got to be one of the greatest, longest running programs that we have here at the school. Easy.
Oh, it's the greatest, longest running program. I mean, when you think about volleyball, stumbled, had issues, had to go out and hire Bird.
And she's done a great job.
I mean, track's really good, but he hasn't been here that long. I mean, you're talking about Coach G's. Shoot, R.C. Slocum hired Coach G. He's been here, this is 24th year? 23rd or 24th year?
He's been here for a very long time. He's been
and been successful for a
very
long time.
Yeah, so, yeah, got the picture. The girls got the trophy. They're happy campers. We are proud of them. It's been an interesting week.
Yeah, and it's Monday.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting week. It's still Monday. In addition to things that are going on nationally outside of sports, there's plenty of that. But definitely,
this ain't the podcast for that.
But
you want to hear about that stuff? Go elsewhere.
I'm sure Joe Rogan's touching on it somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we've got a bunch of good stuff on tap for you today. Gonna highlight a handful of games here. As we did, we're going to kind of run it similar to how we did last week. Just kind of touch on the top 25 from this past week, because overall it's really not overly relevant.
I think we might just touch on our game, to be honest, considering it seems to be in a bit of a state of flux right now.
Right, exactly. So we can definitely jump on some things. We don't like Big Ten land, but Michigan effectively outdone at this point after 2 weeks. Indiana took them down.
I think that's not just Michigan down. I think that might be the beginning of the end for Harbaugh.
Right.
And it doesn't matter that Indiana might be an actual team this year. That doesn't matter. What matters is that it's Indiana and you're Michigan and you don't lose to them.
No.
I mean, it was 24 straight going into that game, and they lost. And I don't care if Indiana is doing all right. You have more talent, so therefore you should beat them as long as you have better coaching. And if you're telling me that the coaching was the problem, then he's absolutely got to go, because Indiana football should never, ever have a better coach than the University of Michigan.
At one point, you're down 31-14 in the third quarter, and that just tells me all I need to know about Michigan football right now.
Well, I watched a good bit of that game, and it was never close.
No.
It was never really a game. Michigan... they're just not good. What was weird, it seemed like their defense, which had only been the only shining part of Michigan football this year had been their defense. They went into a shell too. Indiana did not have a problem moving the ball, and the Michigan offense and the offensive play calling, just everything on that side of the ball is just flat doo-doo.
Yeah. One interesting game I did want to touch on in the Big Ten, and it was not a ranked game, but can we just talk about Penn State being ranked preseason top 10, and now they have started 0-3, and they just they didn't lose to Maryland. They got spanked by Maryland. They lost 35-19.
Yeah, and that's another one of those. I put Maryland and Indiana in the same boat. They're good at basketball, but in the fall it's really not their time. And they went out and they beat two of the big name Big Ten game, really big name national teams in Penn State and Michigan. So the problem is once you get to the third game of the year, it's no longer this is a weird year, this is COVID. Like, you just suck.
Yeah, you're just not good at your job.
You're not good at football. Whatever you did or failed to do in preparation for kind of a weird season, you did horribly.
No doubt.
Now, there'll be a lot of coaches that get passes for that because, again, it's like running a restaurant in a pandemic.
Right.
I've never done it, so I'm learning on the fly. But there are certain things that shouldn't be happening, and Penn State losing to Maryland and Michigan losing to Indiana and not just squeakers losing.
Right.
Those aren't things that happen in the world of college football, COVID or not, and you think that your job is safe.
Yeah. A little bit closer to home here. You had a tight game with Texas and West Virginia.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of that. I mean, neither of those teams are any good.
No.
I mean, it was just kind of who's going to accidentally win at the end of this. And I'm not sure it really has any massive effect on Tom Herman's future.
No.
Win or lose. But, I mean, West Virginia's not any good at football, so it's not like you really accomplished anything. But you're not hearing any of them kind of bump their gums either. I mean, they're not puffing their chest out about beating West Virginia at home.
Yeah.
And I get it. We say that one call doesn't make the game, but that pass interference on the last play was just highway robbery.
That was rough.
That was brutal.
That was brutal.
But again, you know, West Virginia, given how poor Texas played, they had plenty of opportunities to not be in that situation.
Right, exactly. And I feel like that's something that I will always state anytime you have these games. And it's an important thing to always remember.
If you can point out like 5 or 6 egregious calls, then that's one thing. Then it is absolutely the official's fault.
Right.
You know, but when you're talking about last play of the game, you get hosed on a PI call. I mean, you shouldn't have been in the position where you were going to get hosed. Like a bad call or a no call on a pass interference cost you the game. You can't be in that position.
No. So Texas keeps Herman alive for now. Moving on, one really interesting game. And we touched on it a little bit, but I think Liberty pulling it out against Virginia Tech.
Yeah, all I saw was the kind of the last sequence of that with Virginia Tech icing the blocked kick return for a touchdown.
Stupidest thing. I can't believe that happened.
There are people that are 100% in favor of icing the kicker. There are people that think it's dumb, and I'm the guy that says either way, I just think it's a dumb thing to argue about. I mean, something like that happens once in a million years where you ice the kicker, but your team accidentally blocks it and runs it back. I mean, that's a series of events that has to occur.
Right.
You know, so I don't know. Virginia Tech is not very good.
No.
And Liberty, of all places, has a relevant football team.
Well, Hugh Freeze, man, like I said, that's what he does. He takes bad programs and makes them good.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you look at Ole Miss, the Ole Miss days, I mean, those were good teams as much as they were not a good program.
Well, yeah, Hugh Freeze is, I mean, and Lane Kiffin and Hugh Freeze are a lot alike. You know, they're going to get you a lot of football wins, but the question is how they're going about it.
Yeah, sure.
And look, if you've been caught, you got in trouble, then it's completely fair to get criticized for that.
Right. And that's fair. Other than that, you had Oklahoma State squeak it out against Kansas State. Didn't see any of that game.
I didn't see any other Big 12 games.
No, I saw Iowa State did maintain that they ended up beating Baylor.
I didn't watch
but
it,
it was a gross game from what I saw. I required a big comeback from Iowa State from what I'm seeing. But regardless on those, the only other major game, and it was a major game, with title implications.
There were 2 major games.
Well, yeah, but I want to touch on the non-SEC one first. You got Notre Dame taking down Clemson. Granted, Trevor Lawrence less Clemson, but still Clemson.
Well, Clemson was missing a lot of starters. Actually,
yes.
People think it was just Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
Clemson was down a lot of injuries, but that's kind of part of football.
It is.
You know, I still don't know what to think about it though. To be honest, is when you take Trevor Lawrence, who's he's a game-changing kind of quarterback in a quarterback-driven sport.
Right.
And then, you add in missing some, I believe they're missing a couple of the front 7 on defense. So it's, I mean, that's not an excuse. And, I guess Notre Dame did what they had to do against a freshman, second-time starter?
Yeah.
He started at BC.
Yep.
So assuming Notre Dame doesn't stub their toe between now and the championship game, they'll be in the championship game. Lawrence is back, and the way we don't have to worry about Notre Dame is if Trevor Lawrence is back and they beat Notre Dame by 30, which is completely plausible because Trevor Lawrence is phenomenal.
I think he does play enough into that game that I think it would make a lot of sense.
That kid that they have, what is he? Uyan Galilei or something like that. I was trying to get it right.
That looks about right. Yeah.
But he's going to be really good. He is. But he's a freshman.
I mean, he went 29 for 44. I mean, he threw for 439 yards.
Yeah, but there's an it factor that Trevor Lawrence has that no freshman on the planet really has.
No. So, very tight ball game. people are complaining about it here in the in our neck of the woods because of what it potentially means for a playoff spot. We'll worry about that.
Well,
later.
here's how I see it though. Notre Dame still has to play North Carolina, and I don't know what Mac Brown's got going on right now. It's really confusing, but at the same time, Mac Brown can certainly get a team up for a big game.
Oh, no doubt.
Boston College didn't look like slouches against Clemson.
No.
So BC looks like it could be a challenge. So, like I said, assuming they don't stub their toe and lose one,
yeah.
Because if they do, then all Clemson has to do is win.
Right.
But if they make it, they make it the ACC championship game. The only thing. Well, no, realistically, I mean, if they go undefeated, I don't know that Clemson gets a spot. Because if they beat Clemson with Trevor Lawrence, so really either Notre Dame wins that game, again, with Trevor Lawrence, under center for Clemson, or Trevor Lawrence shows up and throttles Notre Dame by like 30, then I think you have, those are two options that I think you have a path for us to make it.
Right. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that.
I'll be rooting for the Fighting Mac Browns whenever they play North Carolina.
Same here.
We won't have to worry about it.
I'm all cool with him winning right now.
Because it doesn't matter. I mean, at that point, you're not going to get a 2-loss team from the ACC.
So yeah, I think that'll work. You look at the SEC slate; it was really light this week. You had a lot of people that were either out.
Another week with bye weeks and stuff.
Yeah,
really the only two games that we're talking about. One, and ours just because it's an A&M podcast.
Sure. And
then the Florida-Georgia game.
Yeah, but you did have Mississippi State, which they did not cover, which we both said was going to happen.
Yeah, well, yeah, but relative to anything that matters,
it wasn't.
Those were the only two games, and really, us against South Carolina really didn't matter either, given the outcome. It's something you gloss over, hit the highlights. But the Florida-Georgia game was, that was a fun game. I tried to watch a decent amount of it. I was laughing when I saw Florida go down, and then they had like a sideline shot, and the skies had like opened up, torrential, Florida, shower. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I thought was, well, man, if they're down and it's going to turn into a sloppy game, because we've seen, the cocktail party turn into just a mud bowl.
Oh yeah.
And so, if it turns into that and you kind of take a lot of the ability away from Trask to throw, then you were wondering if Florida was going to be able to get back into it. But the weather, just like a Florida little afternoon storm, just kind of in and out.
Right.
And Florida fixed things. They made adjustments.
Yeah.
And what it came down to biting Georgia in the butt, like we already said, was going to be their quarterback.
Yeah.
Their quarterback play is not good. It's not sustainable to be a championship team.
No. And they had a really strong second quarter to really kind of take the reins away from Georgia. And that really kind of set the tone for the rest of the game.
Yeah, Georgia just kind of came out and kicked Florida right in the face, and I don't think Florida was expecting that.
No.
And then literally all you saw was the adjustments, and from then on, the game, that was kind of it. Florida, I thought, I know they got down 14-0, but once you saw Florida really kind of start clicking on, kind of firing all cylinders kind of thing, I think they really walked away with the game.
Well, especially, you consider, like, the next several drives. There was only one scoring drive for Georgia. Every single other one was for Florida. So they took advantage. Florida just kind of further bolstering our position a little bit with that win, too, which is nice. Just kind of reinforcing what we already knew, which was Florida's a pretty solid football team, and it's a good win for us.
Yeah, and people look at that, and a lot of people are looking at what the national pundits are. A lot of them are trying to put Florida above us, and which is crazy because not only do you have the head-to-head win, but you also have a common opponent in South Carolina.
Right.
So, but what it's really going to end up being, though, is Florida will get knocked out of the conversation. Right. Because they'll go to the SEC championship game, barring any sort of complete Florida meltdown,
which is entirely possible too. But
they'll go to the championship game, and Alabama will drum them by 20 some odd points, and then that'll be the end of their playoff talk. And it doesn't matter where they're ranked, because at that point they get absolutely torched. At a point when everybody will probably assume they're playing their best football of the year,
right.
And they'll go into Atlanta, and Alabama will put their foot on the gas because Nick Saban understands. You leave no doubt in championship games.
Right.
And they'll torch them, and then Florida will have 2 losses.
And be done.
One to Alabama that we had, and one to us. And at that point, you can take the common opponent crap and throw it out of South Carolina.
It doesn't matter.
The common opponent that we both beat. And then it's just, okay, well, Alabama beat us both, but we beat you. So that's kind of it. That's how the standings work. So at that point, not only will we be second in the West, but we'll be second in the SEC.
Right.
Of course, this is dependent on us winning out the games, which is also dependent on us getting to play all of our games.
Right. So we'll definitely touch on that. But you had one other game before we get into ours. You did have Arkansas, who started off slow against Tennessee. Tennessee had a much stronger first half, but
Arkansas closed the game better. Football team, dude. Yeah. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Man, if Tennessee never had to play actual football games, they'd be a really great program.
Yeah.
But
a lot of prestige, quote unquote. There.
Yeah. Well, the prestige. Butch Jones can run a program. I've heard this said a couple different places. I mean, he may be the worst game day coach in the SEC.
It seems like it, because it just.
Think about the talent that they've amassed. I mean, it's not like they're recruiting top 40 recruiting classes. They're putting together talent, and everything from the outside looking in, everything looks like it's they're heading in the right direction. Everything's going right. They're doing well, but then they actually have to show up on Saturday and play a football game, and everything goes down the shitter.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty clear to me, at least this year. I mean, granted, I know it's Tennessee, but pretty clear Sam Pittman's got to be coach of the year so far.
Well, as long as Arkansas can keep moving forward, they got a lot of games left to play.
They do,
but even if there was no issue with any positive tests on our team, I don't know how much I'd talk about this Tennessee game. We beat Arkansas handily, and Arkansas just handled Tennessee. Tennessee's bad.
Yeah.
We get to play the game. They're going to be starting a freshman quarterback.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough game for them.
It's going to be hard. I would think that the most difficult part of this game is that our players aren't looking past Tennessee.
Right. And so, I mean, that'll definitely be
But to what? Like, what are you looking past it, though? To Ole Miss?
There's really not a lot to look past.
I think these guys are completely locked in because there's not a massive game left on the schedule. Everybody thinks that Auburn has the best chance FPI-wise, but I think the FPI could be pretty stupid.
Oh, for sure.
I think the biggest threat left on our schedule is Ole Miss, and that's only because they'll come out and throw the ball, 65, 70 times.
Yeah.
And I was listening to Louis Bellina, and we were actually kind of texting back and forth about it. And Ole Miss will go out there and throw the ball 65 times. They might get sacked 6 times, but they don't care.
Yeah, because
that means they're still putting the ball in the air, almost 60 times.
Right.
So it's the Ole Miss is the one that because of matchups you don't like to see. I don't think Auburn. I don't think Auburn. I don't think they're a threat. I don't. They got a really, really good running back, and we've got a really phenomenal running defense. So the last threat on your schedule is Ole Miss, but there's not a football team in the world that's going to look past Tennessee to Ole Miss.
No.
So these guys are locked in.
Yeah, and I think kind of as we go forward into our game, I mean, safe to say, we always talk about the idea of things that we need to improve, and I think. We talked, the last way we've done, like the sustains and the improves. 3 sustains,
3 improves.
There's really not a whole lot of improves I can really throw at this game. And, absolute domination. I think the only gripe I had was maybe seeing us capitalize on those first couple of drives. But other than that, it was a pretty flawless game plan.
Yeah, it wasn't a perfectly clean start. I mean, look, if you don't score on every offensive drive, then you can improve.
Right.
That's just fact of the matter. If they score any points, then you can improve.
That's right.
So, and they missed a field goal too. So, I mean, they could have doubled their point output.
Right.
But when you look at the numbers that they put up their video game numbers for our defense, you allow 150 yards total, 50 yards rushing. I mean, that's literally what you do in a video game.
It was incredible.
And then on offense, I thought everything about the offensive performance was fun to watch because. You saw Spiller, you saw Nice, you saw Kellen, you saw Weidemeyer, but then you saw Achain, you saw Demas out there. We talked about having a convincing enough win to where Kellen Mond gets to spend, a good part of the fourth quarter with a baseball hat on.
Yeah.
We got to see that. So we got to see a lot of things that we were really hoping to see. And honestly, it's hard to sit here and if we really sat and broke down tape, I know that we could find some improves, but they'd be really specific. The penalty. I mean, we didn't have a lot of penalties. So
we only had 2.
We didn't give them any sacks. Yeah, and that's coming off a performance where we had 100 yards in penalties. So you didn't give him any sacks. I mean, he was 61, 62% completion rate. So I mean, I guess sure you'd love a higher percentage rate, but he's about a 62 to 64% quarterback.
Yeah, I think if you look at this game statistically, it was just an absolute drubbing across the board. I mean, you had 2 penalties for 25 yards, but we gave up no turnovers. We owned time of possession. Was it 38 minutes to 21?
Yeah, time of possession was huge. Win the turnover battle. I mean, these are These are the big things you always say, right? Going to game. Well, we need to win the time position. We need to win the turnover battle. But, I mean, they're through.
Yeah, and, I mean, total yardage, we had 532. They're 150. I mean, how often do you see numbers like that? 150 yards total offense over the course of the game. I mean, it was just an absolute drubbing.
And don't get me wrong, South Carolina's bad.
Right. No, they are.
I
I went back and watched highlights from the game, and I heard something on the broadcast right after Kellen Mond had scored his rushing touchdown when he faked out on the pitch and ran it in. You heard the crowd was starting to chant "Fire, must chant," which I mean, I don't blame them after a game like this.
They're not going to put up with it.
You had 26 first downs to 9. Our third down efficiency was as good as it's been, 12 of 16. I mean, incredible.
You bear off all the stats. I mean, you don't even have to look at the stats. Look at the score.
Yeah, the score tells the story.
That it wasn't close, and you would have loved a shutout,
Of course, and, like I said, minor gripes. I think overall, I feel like we said this against Arkansas, but I think it's, we can recount on that. This was the most complete performance we've had. Under Jimbo Fisher, I would argue, you have had every aspect of the game. All 3 phases were damn perfect. With the exception of one missed extra point. Way to go, Seth. Sorry.
Yeah, well, and those are, they're just going to come here and there, and that is what it is. But what's funny is, in years past, we see a kicker miss an extra point. Our first thought is, crap, when's that going to come back to bite us?
Yeah.
But it happened, and I remember just thinking, oh, well. It didn't even register because I know that seeing this offense, and especially, when it's humming like it is, you're not worried about missing an extra point. Those are the mistakes that you don't ever like to see happen, but if you're going to do it against South Carolina,
Right. Well, and I think, one thing I will certainly say that I was really, really happy with in this game was A-Chain. Came out and just, solidified what we saw from him in his limited showing last week and just further bolstered what we already knew, which is our running back stable is stupidly talented. And, when we started getting in the third quarter with that 2 running back...
We saw a crown over. We got...
Oh, my God.
We got everybody. Demas was out there. Max Wright caught a touchdown.
I'm about to say, the final drive was just incredible. You had Haynes King come out here and just throw a nice little pass to Max Wright. He scores a touchdown. Crown over looked fantastic. Just every...
It reminded me of the bowl game against NC State.
Yeah, it was just an absolutely incredible performance.
Like sending in the backups.
And the backups did just as good.
They did. And you could tell that we were just trying to burn the clock with Haynes King, but Jimbo also wasn't about to allow South Carolina to get the ball back with any hope of maybe driving down.
No.
So that third down, run Max right out in the flat, throw a little floater.
Yeah, and it worked. And, just overall...
If you can't stop the backups, that's really not our problem.
I was about to say, at that point, it's not running it up. You're just bad. I look at, obviously, O-line, Maroon Goons, again, just absolutely outstanding performance.
Well, it's the second week in a row you've got one of our 5 that's the SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week.
Right, and...
A-Chain was the Freshman of the Week.
Yeah, and overall, defensively, we are now statistically the number 1 defense in the SEC.
Yeah, I tell you, it was upsetting to hear for the press conference today. Clemens got dinged up and had ankle surgery.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate.
But again...
3 to 5 weeks out is what they were saying?
Last I saw was no timetable, but, again... One, these guys are physical freaks, so depending on what he had done, it may not be much of anything. Maybe 4 weeks for him.
Maybe.
And 2, him specifically, he is such a freak. But again, did you even, did you miss a beat? Did you see him missing a beat? Did you when we rotate on the front forward? We've got depth now, and that's something that Jimbo's had to build, and we've all said that it's something that, if you want to be a championship team, you can't just have really good starters, you got to have really good backups, and in order to have really good backups, you got to have a really good program and culture, because those kids are willing to come in and wait their turn. And we complained about it for years watching Alabama. Their entire second string and special teams are all 5-stars. But these kids have bought into it, and they realize that, they'll do what they can to help the team now, knowing that they'll get their shot later. And a great example of that was Max Wright. The kid comes in as a D lineman, has an injury.
Right.
It's hey, I'll switch to tight end. It really seemed like I'll do whatever I can to help the team, and stuff like that's rewarded. You have a game where we get up and we can run some of the 2s out there, and he scores a touchdown.
Yeah, just incredible performance. Like I said, I just have nothing to complain about.
Yeah, we got to talk to Max about his mustache, but outside of that,
then that is fine. I think there's just so much we can take away. from that performance. And once again, yes, we understand South Carolina is bad, but
that's what you're supposed to do to bad teams.
But say this is a game where within the last several seasons, we probably go into this house and we might win by 10. We might win by less than a touchdown, and we may have come out and looked a little flat. But, that's just not the case with this season. It's Texas A&M taking care of business. Battered Aggie syndrome needs to go out the door right now. It's not something that anybody needs to worry about.
Well, it's
for now.
pretty easy for it to creep back in
always
when you have the COVID stuff.
Right, which, that's certainly something we can talk about with the press conference today, of course. So we heard, last I heard, it was 2 members, 1 player and 1 student
one of the student trainers, student workers.
Trainers.
Yeah, so 2 from the trip, 3 total if you count Damani now,
right?
Who didn't travel.
So you have a handful of COVID cases at this point that have come out,
and your hope is that they either get the multiple negative results like Saban did,
right,
or the contact tracing doesn't go insane,
right. And so fingers crossed on that. Just for the rest of this slate, of course. I mean, I don't think it would benefit us to take our foot off the gas going into Tennessee or whatever the next game would be on the schedule that we would play. So we really don't need to see any kinks in that. We've already seen 1 game get postponed, Auburn and Ole Miss, thanks to COVID issues on one of the squads. I think it was Auburn, but I might be wrong.
Well, there's already 2 games we're talking about having to reschedule, but then you look at you sit back and you look at the how the SEC has consistently done the right thing, with all of their protocols, with with all their testing, and you look and realize that they have that extra week built in.
Mm-hmm.
They were also playing for the we may have to have teams playing on championship weekend, and that's fine. Right. So there's been a lot of buffer built in. The problem you're going to see is with championship game buffers because unless the college football playoff is willing to move, which again, everything has to be able to shift in all this.
Right.
We all knew coming into this that if we weren't able to kind of roll with the punches, then if we tried something very rigid, as soon as you throw a wrench in it, it's over.
Right.
So hopefully there's already discussion with college football playoffs. Having a contingency to push everything, because the problem is if the college football playoff games don't get pushed, but you push your championship game, you have 6 days to get ready for a playoff.
Which is just not enough time against top-level competition.
If every single conference did that, it would be one thing, but since it would be a one-off, not that life is fair, but the NCAA tries to make some of that at least moderately fair.
Sure. So, I mean, safe to say, as we've gone through with all these games, coming up into this next week. Do you think we're going to play?
I don't know. I want to hear more tomorrow because I think, when you pause practice activities, I don't think it's quite as serious when it's a Monday. There's a lot of people jumping to a lot of conclusions. I'd like to see the results come back. I'd like to hear the report.
Mm-hmm.
As wild and ridiculous as the contact tracing stuff is, it would not surprise me for us to reschedule this to championship weekend or something like that. It's weird though because with some of the other games getting canceled, some of those teams have already had to cancel a game and are already looking at that weekend to play a different game.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting how that shakes out. There might be teams like LSU. They just take the L. I mean, I don't know what you do, but it's
right.
You're going to have a crappy year as it is, and I don't think anybody in Baton Rouge wants to go to a bowl game when they're sitting at 3 or 4 wins, anyways.
Right.
But on the flip side of that, if I'm Arkansas and anything happens, I want to play every single one of my games to make sure. I'd like to hit that 5-win mark and go to a bowl game because. Yeah. Because with that, you're talking about winning 5 conference games when everybody thought they weren't going to win any.
Well, it's crazy. Just to comment on LSU real quick. Looking at their upcoming schedule, how often do you see a team go from championship caliber one season to missing a bowl?
Well, you don't, but LSU's trash and Ed Orgeron's trash. And,
yeah.
And what they're seeing is by losing Brady and losing Burrow and losing like 80% of their roster basically to the NFL, that's what happens. And so what's occurred is... I get that LSU always likes to be in we don't, rebuild, we reload. Well, then clearly something in either the coaches that left
yeah.
or the personnel that you maybe didn't recruit as well. Maybe your recruiting was skewed, or you didn't address actual recruiting needs, and you just went for recruiting rankings. There's something in there, and there's something very telling about it, and you're seeing it play out on the field.
Yeah, safe to say LSU's got plenty of problems they need to figure out.
I'm telling you, it starts with the coach, and a lot of LSU people, they really don't want to admit it.
No, he is way too prone to wanting to be at pool parties with girls that are like way younger than he is. So.
Yeah, smooth move, Ed.
Woo! I mean, hey, you know what? You're on your way out with your wife. I don't blame you, man. Have fun. But anyway.
Yes.
Oh my God, what a guy! All right, so got to look at it next week's slate from the SEC. We got some good matchups, but potentially some that'll get postponed. One that already has been. But I'll go ahead and jump in on a couple here. Start the day early. You got Georgia at Missouri. Georgia's 11.5-point favorite early.
I don't know about that. I thought Missouri was starting to play a little bit better football, and again, Georgia and quarterbacks don't seem to go together.
No,
unfortunately, we talked about going to Florida game.
Yeah, Bennett. I mean, his numbers are okay, except he's got 6 picks to his 8 touchdowns. And
that's not the ratio you're looking for.
No, it's kind of terrible.
4-3 is really bad.
Real bad. So, yeah, they got plenty of work. But, 11.5 to Georgia. Do you think Missouri covers?
I think they might, because I think Georgia's going to be down in the mouth about it. We saw what Georgia did when they went and played Texas in a bowl game when they were all poopy pants.
Yeah, and they got smoked. And it was
Georgia's poopy pants. They'll probably find a way to win just because Georgia talent just far, far, far supersedes Missouri's. But it would not shock me for Missouri to cover at all.
No, me either. I mean, you got Vandy at Kentucky,
You know what? Go Vandy. Just win a game.
Win a game. I know it's a 17-point spread, but go Vandy. Make it happen, Captain. Auburn, Mississippi State's already been postponed, so whatever about that. Then you have kind of a revenge game, but at the same time, LSU's got COVID issues, so they may not play it. But Alabama going to LSU, and Alabama's a 28-point favorite on CBS.
That will be, that's a primetime bloodbath.
It's a 5 p.m. game, and I think Alabama's going to not just beat LSU. I think they're going to beat the brakes off.
I don't think they're going to be able to stop themselves from doing it.
No.
I'm not no joke. I don't think there are play calls that Alabama could call the most conservative game that they've called in years, and they would probably still win by 14.
I'm about to say, I think regardless of how this game goes, I don't think LSU has anything close to the talent or the motivation.
Yeah, I was going to say, and nothing to play for.
Right, they have no motivation. It's kind of sad, really.
Apparently, they don't have motivation to keep from getting COVID.
Yeah, well, exactly. So here's a interesting game regarding a couple of previous opponents. Arkansas at Florida. Florida's 17.5-point favorite. I like Arkansas to cover. I don't think they win, but I like them to cover.
I don't, because I think Dan Mullen listens to the press a lot, and so I think he's going to be out for blood to try and smoke everybody he can by as many points as he can. Sure. Dan Mullen doesn't let off the gas. He's not that kind of guy anyways. So I think Dan will go out and beat Arkansas by about 30 points. Because he's sick of hearing any crap about A&M, even though we beat him heads up.
Right.
He's going to do everything he can to position his team properly. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Dan Mullen honestly try and run the score up.
I think that's entirely possible. I think Arkansas's got enough. I'm not sure if they're going to have enough in the tank.
I'll tell you what.
Is the trouble.
If Pitts doesn't play, and it's 50-50 that he does, which, by the way, that hit in the Georgia game was disgusting.
It was.
So I'd be surprised if he plays. If he plays, I think Florida has no problem covering. If he doesn't play, that's a massive weapon to take away. You saw Arkansas. Everybody struggles with Weidermeyer. But imagine taking that out of the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Florida, their backup tight end, and we saw him in spots. He's not bad, but he's just not Pitts.
Right.
Pitts is kind of one of those. Every 5 to 10 years, you find a tight end like that hit your roster.
Right.
So we've just been fortunate. We've kind of racked them up in a row a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I think,
one of them we had to find the transfer portal to do it. Reach Sternberger. So,
yeah, exactly.
So, but when you put importance on that position, you can tell that Florida does, but their backup he's just not even close to Pitts.
No.
So, if Pitts plays, Florida covers. If Pitt doesn't, I could see Arkansas covering.
I think
no way Arkansas wins. But go Arkansas.
Do something. Just to solidify, make it happen, it'll be fine.
It would be sweet justice for all the whining Florida fans for them to go out and tank against Arkansas this weekend. So
whatever. Yeah.
Well, coming off the high of beating your rival, because Florida Georgia is a legit rival. You don't know anything about it. Like, they do not like each other.
Nope.
And so coming off the high, maybe not quite as locked in because it's just Arkansas. You never know. You want to see Sam Pittman solidify Coach of the Year? Go beat Florida.
Yeah, exactly. I think this next game, South Carolina at Ole Miss, I think, obviously relevant from the stance that it is our next opponent and our previous opponent going at the same time. That we'll be playing.
That's kind of it, though, just because styles of play don't really match up.
They don't.
So, I mean, I don't think we'll take. Well, I'll tell you what will be interesting is if South Carolina can slow Ole Miss down at all on offense. Because if they can keep Ole Miss around 30, 35 points.
I like our chances.
Then all of a sudden, I'm not even worried about Ole Miss anymore. Like, not even concerned in the slightest. Like, my concern meter for the Tennessee game is about a quarter of an inch on a scale of, like, 60 feet.
Right.
All right? So...
I was about to say, I'm definitely feeling that. I think it's going to be Ole Miss. I think they're going to win. And honestly, looking at the spread, it's 11 points. I honestly think they will cover just because I don't think South Carolina's that good.
South Carolina's bad, and they just got a massive beat down. If he hasn't already, he's definitely on the verge of losing that team. And that's another thing you're seeing with LSU. And here's one thing I don't know if I ever really talked about before the season. I'm sure we mentioned it. You're going to have some teams that all of a sudden have nothing to play for, so why would they care about the protocols?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
If you're looking like a 3 or 4 win season, if you're an LSU player, why do you even care?
Right.
Go party, go do whatever it is you want to do, infect the team, and next thing you know, LSU only plays 6 games this year.
Right. Which, I mean, that would just be wild to see how that goes down. I think looking at our game, which, we talked about, really not a whole lot of concern. The line is interesting to me early because it's only 8 in favor of Texas A&M. I think we absolutely cover that.
We opened at like 14. It's been bet way down.
I don't know what the heck happened.
It's been bet way down.
I mean, unless it's just the COVID announcement, but even then,
that might be because I thought we opened at like 12 or 14.
It was 13 points when I saw it.
So that's why. I'd take all kinds of money at 8 points.
Right now, yeah, absolutely.
Are you kidding me?
I mean, just statistically, they're not on the same level.
Tennessee isn't good. They're really not close to good. Tennessee's gonna have a freshman quarterback. Butch Jones is a bad game day coach. I could see us beating Tennessee by more than we just beat South Carolina.
Right. I mean, every stat you look at, there's just really no comparison. It's just real bad. So I mean, I think they're allowing a lot of passing yards. They're allowing a lot of rushing yards. We're going to feast offensively.
Well, you don't get to be a bad team without allowing a lot of yards.
Right, exactly. So I think we're gonna feast pretty healthy. I think it's just like I said, they're on a 4-game losing streak right now after beating Missouri.
It's gonna be 5.
And so they're just Tennessee's bad and they should feel bad. It's not going to be a good game. I think
that is a fan base that does not mess around either.
No,
I have not seen much from Tennessee Twitter.
They've been
lately.
pretty quiet.
Maybe it's because they suck.
Well, because you think about the last time we got them. We got them when we were both undefeated coming into Kyle Field. So I think they had a little bit more hair on their balls at that point.
Well, when was the last time we beat Tennessee?
That was 2016.
2:30 on CBS, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
It was 2:30 CBS. It was an absolute great football game. I loved it.
Yeah, a couple extra gray hairs after that one.
But you know what? We will certainly take it. I mean, I thought it was a great game, and this one will not live up to that hype.
And that's how you can tell. It's like we're not even hearing anything from Vol Twitter.
And they are being very quiet.
They know they suck.
Yeah, and see, it's when you have that self-acceptance of what you are, that's when the healing process will at least start being better.
The real question is, considering how long Tennessee's been in the tank, who do they go after as head coach? Because, I mean, how long are you going to hold on to Butch Jones? He's clearly shown that he's not the answer. But who's out there? Because right now you got a lot of coaches getting kind of passes a little bit on maybe subpar performances this year because of COVID. Right. I think you have to. Plus budgets state that you can't afford a lot of buyout and you can't afford a lot of massive new hire salaries. So Tennessee might be stuck for another year, and it's like Texas. With every year that you're stuck in that, it comes back 2 or 3-fold on the back end.
Well, it's going to hurt because at the same time, you've had the players that have just been in the mindset of this program. And despite the fact that people say they would love a culture change take time. It's not something that happens overnight, as we have clearly seen with Jimbo Fisher. And honestly, what we saw with Kevin Sumlin. You see a lot of these culture changes for good or bad. And it takes at least 3, maybe 4 years before it's really setting in.
Well, and more so, it's just that you've got lame duck coaches recruiting.
Right.
So it's not just a culture change problem. It's a talent issue because all of us, like, the new coach is going to come in on the tail of what potentially could be a couple of years in a row of really average to below average recruiting.
Right.
And then the new coach, through no fault of his own, doesn't have the talent.
Right. And as I said, it's unfortunate for them.
But for them.
For them, Tennessee just rough looking program, and it's just a wonder why, how they got to this level after being so prestigious for so long. I really don't understand it. You go from national title winning 98, really just a really good team in the 90s, and a lot of really strong teams before that, and you've just more or less pissed away the entirety of the 2000s, both 2000s and 2010s.
Well, and there's no signs of life for them. That's their problem. I mean, it's not like Tennessee has recruited terribly, I guess, technically, but again, whenever you pull the trigger and make that change, you're not going to have the talent on the roster. And Tennessee fans are impatient. Now, granted, most fan bases tend to be pretty impatient, but I tell you what, when you're talking about 2 decades of walking in the wilderness, they've about had it. And at Tennessee, there's not much else to fall back on.
No. And somebody pointed something out, which I thought was really interesting. They talk about prestige in programs. And I don't know how many titles they have. I want to say it's like 6. Like national titles all time for Tennessee. But it's like you look at like a Texas A&M program versus a Tennessee program. You have a Texas A&M program, which, yes, you had titles, but they were like well back before any of us were alive. And you have a Tennessee program that, has titles, at least within modern memory. But it's pretty clear that these are 2 programs moving in opposite directions. You have Texas A&M, which has been moderately good, but trending in the right direction and making the moves to make it happen, going out, making the hires to make it happen, improving facilities. You feel like Neyland Stadium's been the same size forever. It's a fan base which has been locked in the same mindset forever, which is we just need to get back to what we were in 98, man. And it's just not there.
Well, they've whiffed off. They've whiffed on some hires, plural, and not that we haven't. But Tennessee is a really good example of what happens when all you do is run around and quote your records from the 80s and 90s.
Right.
Like, nobody cares.
No.
Honestly, if you'd won half the national championships from 90 to 99, nobody right now would care because you suck. Right. So you can continue to beat your chest about being a blue blood if you want, and look, everybody loves the checkerboard end zones, but like the reality is, you're not good anymore. You haven't been good for a while, and so at some point you have to accept reality. But at the same time, it's what people just accept your place. But like you said, the difference is A&M has been making the moves to take that next step and be in that next level, in that next tier. Whereas Tennessee, it's like they're stuck in time.
Yeah, you just feel like, exactly, they're stuck in the 90s.
When's the last good coach they had? Fulmer?
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, what was the last really elite quarterback they had? Manning?
Manning? Gosh.
I mean, well, you had the kid that played against us, but even then Tennessee just kind of fell apart after they lost our game. They fell right off the face of the world.
So, I don't know. Tennessee's caught in quicksand right now, and they won't stop thrashing around.
Right. It's like you look at the SEC East, and, it literally, where Tennessee would have been in the conversation every year, it's boiled down to Florida and Georgia every single season. And, you're just not there anymore.
Yeah, well, and look at, like, even Georgia with Mark Richt, who, consistently won a lot of games, but never got him over the hump. And even Georgia finally decided to cut ties. Florida grabbing Mullen, it's just, they had McElwain before him, wasn't that right? Wasn't that the coach for him?
Yeah, McElwain.
So, Mullen was a great move, getting him from Mississippi State. So Florida and Georgia have both made significant moves, if not I don't know anything about their facilities. I'm sure they've improved them at least a little. But, those were the 3 teams in the SEC East, and Tennessee doesn't seem to really be doing anything other than hiring bad coaches and bitching.
Well, I mean, I would say, if anything, you should look at the mid-majors. You look at some programs like Coastal Carolina or some of these guys that are doing it right, where you see them, they're, granted, the competition they're playing isn't exactly above par, but they're doing a lot with nothing. And if you can do that as a coach at an SEC school that has the quote-unquote prestige like Tennessee has, it can make a difference to bring in somebody like that.
Are you saying Hugh Freeze to Tennessee? Is that what you're saying?
Man, could you imagine the salt coming out of Ole Miss if that were to happen?
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I mean, if they made the move, it wouldn't be a bad move.
It wouldn't be the worst move, honestly. Now that we talk about coaches, I think Hugh Freeze would be.
But has he paid his penance yet? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. It's like congratulations, right. You had one good season with Liberty. Here you go.
But you also know he's a good coach, though. That's the thing. I mean,
right.
You know he's a good coach. He's at Liberty because he's an idiot, not because he's a bad coach.
No, exactly. You know, you make stupid mistakes and you get sent down a level and you got to fix your problems.
Yeah.
But I mean, safe to say as we go forward with this next week, you know, obviously.
I'm hoping we play.
I'm about to say this whole podcast can be null and void because we honestly don't know if we do play. And if that's the case, then we will probably have another conversation about Ole Miss next week where we don't really have a game to analyze because we didn't play it.
Yeah, maybe we'll just talk about something random.
You know?
Like how miserable I am thinking about having to go to drill weekend after next.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I'm about to say.
Well, speaking of that, though, I guess we probably should kind of start wrapping it up. But this week is Veterans Day, so I want to say thank you to everyone serving, everyone who has served, all the branches of the military. Thank you so much for the sacrifice you make and the sacrifices you're making if you're still currently serving. So thank you for your service, absolutely. And you know, if you're walking around town or something on Veterans Day, you know, you see somebody in their duds or see somebody with a hat or shirt, just make sure you thank them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't speak to it because I was never in service, but I appreciate everybody that would made the sacrifice so I didn't have to, and I appreciate everything that they did, and those that are currently serving. Even it doesn't matter who you are. If you've served in the military at this point, I really appreciate all the sacrifices you've made, and it
means something, especially Texas A&M with our military lineage
of course,
too. So it's
a big deal, and we appreciate everything that y'all have done.
So thank you for your service.
Absolutely. And just a personal note this week. So with my buddy Jordan X, his new single, which actually turns out it was an EP. We released 3 songs. It's out on Spotify right now. I will link that on the podcast if you want to go check it out. Called Good Life. It's got some good music on it. I like it. And then we actually have 2 shows this week in College Station. We're playing the 13th and the 14th, both at the Tap. Tickets are going to go quick because of COVID and restrictions. They're having to, they're spreading them out, but they're anticipating a quote unquote sellout for COVID for both shows. So, whatever night works for y'all, feel free to come out. And of course, if you're looking for me, I'll be the idiot in the first band playing bass. So come up here and say hi, buy me a shot, please. It'll make life good. But hey, we really do appreciate you guys. Definitely come check us out. It'll be a ton of fun. Of course, hopefully we get a chance to watch some football this weekend.
Say, like, you have something to look forward to, period. I'm sitting here thinking, man, if football gets postponed and it's the international break for Premier League, like, I'm going to have to do work around the house.
I'm about to say, you certainly don't want to watch your Cowboys lose to the Steelers again.
I wrote the Cowboys off 3 weeks ago.
That's fair. That was a good game.
Realistically, I should have written the Cowboys off about 5 years ago as soon as we all figured out Jerry Jones wasn't going to leave until he died.
Right. So, I'm going to say good games, good weekend. Sports-wise, good weekend for a lot of reasons. So, as you guys go forward, hey, just make sure you guys are taking care of yourselves. All the vaccine talk, whatever. Just wear your masks. Be on top of your stuff. Take care of each other. If you're sick, stay home.
Like always. Just be a good person.
Yeah, be a good person. Be excellent to one another.
Yes.
Party on, dudes. Take care.
All right, man. All right,